much discussion about the correlation between the rise of social media consumption by students since 2008 and its connection to youth anxiety, mental health, and antisocial behavior. Some might even say kids today are much less behaved. The most popular argument is that social media use correlates with the increase of aggression towards classmates and teachers. It's important to note that much of this social media use occurs outside of school hours anyways. However, we should also examine other changes within schools over the last few decades that could potentially also influence antisocial behavior, assuming correlation is the key factor that most people use for their arguments. First correlation, less strict school discipline. The methods educators use to manage student behavior has changed quite dramatically since the mid-20th century. We've seen about 4 major generational shifts in school discipline, from corporal punishment to zero tolerance to restorative justice and now mental health. The reality is the aggressive behavioral interventions that are not only banned and illegal, but also create a public relations disaster and even legal risk. Research has long documented the lasting negative impacts these practices have on mental health. And so there's no denying that discipline through fear of authority has been and still continues to be used in some institutions, like, say, the military, for example.
As well as correcting minor disciplinary infractions as they may happen. So they're able to instill good order and discipline at all times. If IT wasn't around, we wouldn't have the discipline that we take so much pride in.
To enforce compliance, often disregarding mental health concerns. With physical discipline out of the picture, many schools turn to simply removing the problem altogether. This is where zero tolerance policies, which became widespread in the 1990s, early 2000s, allowed for the suspension or expulsion of disruptive students. While reports show that there's been an overall percentage decrease in the expulsion and the suspension rates in school ever since 2008. Yet, many teachers seem to be reporting an increased level of disrespect in their classrooms. The issue here concerns what I believe is probably the right for the aggressors to education. Even in cases where we have worked on, here at the White Hatter in school, for example, when a student is being cyberbullied by a peer, many schools will opt to keep the aggressor in the same classroom as the person who they are targeting, potentially making an educational environment uncomfortable for that person the aggressor is targeting. Additionally, the behaviors that warrant a suspension or expulsion have shifted. Being disrespectful is typically, in some schools, not considered a punishable offense anymore. This raises an important question when an authority figure are limited to only using non-strict disciplinary methods. Does this potentially leave room for a more aggressive individual to exploit the situation? For an analytical perspective on human interaction and negotiation strategies, you might want to explore some good old classic Yale lectures on game theory, human behavior.
And if they're not going to be audited, then according to these payoffs, they'd rather cheat.
Fascinating stuff. Well, today, physical discipline no longer in use, and more problematic students remaining in school. Most of the schools that we work with seem to opt for a restorative justice approach and mental health approach, which by the mid-2000s and 2010s, as public awareness of mental health grew, schools increasingly recognized the need to address the root cause of behavioral issues. And this shift includes using trauma-informed care approaches to discipline, which then forces or treating the underlying issues, and immediate strict discipline or expelling a student doesn't really resolve the core reasons behind misbehavior. Ultimately, addressing the root cause is a more correct and more effective way at tackling social and behavioral challenges. However, the main drawback here is this method often requires significant funding, time, and support that resources many schools seem to lack. If they had more resources, we could probably solve most of these challenges. These issues even extend beyond schools into family life. We have heard firsthand from parents who are unsure about how to discipline kids on the limiting and the use of technology, primarily in fear of criticism from other parents and friends being perceived as too harsh or aggressive. So yeah, these are challenges that families are dealing with every single day. Here is the second correlation: youth civil rights advocacy. Throughout the 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s, youth rights have become central to public debate, with discussions covering topics like sexual identity, gender expression, privacy from parents, and reproductive health. Gone are the days where phrases like
"children should be seen and not heard."
No longer. Today, students are vocal, advocating for social justice, and potentially even at times displaying malicious compliance or disrespect. Newer terms like quiet quitting and malicious compliance also reflect the mindset that if something isn't explicitly against the rules or breaks the law, people are free to do as they please and express the way how they wish. One recent article that we shared on the White Hatter social platforms highlighted some of the latest social media trends that are finding their way in the classrooms. Title, "What is Mewing?" The latest social media trend that is infiltrating classrooms. Is this disrespectful? Is it a power move? What can they do about it? Is it an exercise of free speech or expression? Some students might argue that refusing to answer a question and remaining silent when called upon is their way of asserting their rights. Those are conversations happening today. So, we've seen videos online of public citizens asserting their rights in confrontations with, say, police, being verbally disrespectful without breaking any laws.
You're in the wrong job.
Be on YouTube.
You are in the wrong job if you don't want to be recorded.
I'm not in the wrong job.
With no discipline to follow. And if the officer reacts, there could be significant legal consequences for the police department, including lawsuits, and it's no secret that online videos demonstrating people expressing their rights in that way to others.
You obviously don't understand I have a right to freedom of press, ma'am.
You do not have the right to film in this
I
building.
do. This is a public building.
$5,000 and
This
I
is
issued you a permit?
You're talking about for commercial film. Again, you need education. Go get the town attorney, please.
Although seemingly to some might be disrespectful, yet result in no formal retaliatory action. We live in an era where public awareness of individual rights for both adults and students is greater than ever. Like those examples of people paying parking tickets or other fines with bags of coins.
I'm here to pay a traffic ticket.
Well, some might find this behavior uncomfortable or disrespectful, doesn't necessarily take away one's right to act in such a way. So, Based on correlational evidence provided, students are increasingly exhibiting distressing behaviors in class, which coincide not only with their use of phones and social media, but other factors like students today face less strict disciplines compared to pre-internet times, and students are more aware of the boundaries of what they can say, when they can say it, and what they can get away with. If you are arguing that tech or social media is bad because of behaviors seem to be worse, more so today because phones have increased and social media has increased, I would encourage you to look at all relationships that have changed alongside phone use. Maybe correlational evidence is not the best measurement at all. Speaking of, interesting, did you know that ice cream sales correlate with violent crime rate? Something to think about.